Hello artists, for this week's art activity, we're going to learn how to draw a groundhog inspired by Groundhog Day on February 2nd. I will show you how to make a groundhog step by step using simple lines and shapes, and then you can decide if you want it to see its shadow or not. And to finish it off, we'll add some background details. For this lesson, you will need a white piece of paper, any size will do, a pencil for drawing, an eraser in case you make a mistake, and if you'd like to outline your work before you color, a black marker or crayon is all you need. For coloring, some simple crayons and markers work fine, and if you would like to try some paint or colored pencils, that's up to you. So let's grab our stuff and get ready to make a groundhog. To begin our groundhog drawing, we're going to take our paper and turn it vertical, straight up and down. This will give us plenty of room to not only fit the groundhog, but the shadow below if you'd like to make one. Groundhogs hibernate underground in the winter in what we call a burrow. We're going to create our groundhog coming out of their burrow through a hole in the ground. So we're going to start our picture in the center of our paper by making a curved line that resembles a smile, which will be the opening in the ground for our groundhog to peek out. Above that line, we will draw the head and the body of our groundhog. So I'm going to go towards the top of my paper and make my little dot for my starting spot. And I'm going to put my pencil right on that dot and go all the way around to draw a circle for the groundhog's head. Below the head, I'm going to make two curved lines for the body, and I'll stop when I hit the start of the hole. And to complete the hole, I'll take the edges and simply curve them around to the body. Before I move on, I'm going to make the ground line. So if I go to the side of my paper and make a straight line, stop when I hit the groundhog, pick up on the other side, I will now have the line for the ground in my picture. A groundhog will have its two front paws showing, so two curves in the front with smaller curves for the feet. And I could also add a larger curve to make the stomach, which will be a different color brown later on. On top of the head, I can make two rounded ears, not too large, for my groundhog. And I could add an extra curved line inside for the inner part of the ear. Inside the circle, we'll make the groundhog's face. You can make whatever eyes you want. I'm going to make the circular eyes with the colored dotted inside. And a circle or oval will be perfect for the groundhog's nose. The nose is also black, so you can use your pencil to color it in, or wait till later to color it with a marker or crayon. Below the nose, we'll start the mouth with a straight line, and then two curves that go all the way up and touch the nose. Groundhogs have larger teeth in the front to help them chew, so a square with a little dash will give the impression of its front teeth. Groundhogs also have whiskers, so our dots and our straight lines on both sides will create whiskers for our groundhog. Now that the drawing is done, we can begin to add color to our groundhog picture. Groundhogs are brown. They're also furry in texture. Remember, texture is how something feels. So if we were to take some brown crayons or colored pencils or a brown marker, we can use those supplies to create the furry brown texture on the groundhog. I also want to make sure that I pick a few different shades of brown. That way I can use a lighter brown for the stomach and the mouth so that it stands out from the rest of the groundhog's body. So I'm going to take a darker brown first, and it could be a marker or a crayon or a colored pencil, and I'm going to use small dashed lines to create the furry texture on the groundhog's body. When we draw, we use lines to create texture. so that we can give the impression of how something would feel if we were to touch it. So these little dashed marks will help it look like fur. Notice I'm not coloring it in, I'm just drawing the little lines, either with a marker or a crayon or a colored pencil. Your choice with whatever supplies you have. And I'm going to keep going until I fill up the face. Make sure to go around the eyes and the mouth and the teeth, because those areas do not have fur covering them. Now, if I were to take my brown crayon, I can simply color right over those marks that I made. I could just color a little bit lighter so that I could still see them, and it'll fill in the empty spaces, and it'll fill in the rest of the brown for the groundhog's fur. And I would keep going until I am completely finished filling in all of the space. Again, make sure we go around the mouth and the eyes because they aren't brown, so we don't want to fill them in quite yet. Once I have the head and the body filled in, I can take a lighter brown or a tannish color, and I can use that to color in the stomach and the feet and the mouth so that it stands out against the rest of the groundhog's body. And there you go. Your groundhog is all colored in. Now, I'm going to take black quickly, and I can use it to just fill in the edges of the hole so that it gives the impression that it's deep in the ground and that the groundhog is sticking out from his home. Now that the groundhog is completely colored in, we can create the shadow reflected below it. Using a black crayon or a black colored pencil will be your best bet for creating the shadow. The shadow is reflected below the groundhog. It sees it when it pops out from its home in the ground. What happens is that when light shines down on an object from up above, it creates the shadow below. Think about it when you go outside on a sunny day, the sun hits you from behind, and then your shadow is reflected on the sidewalk. So what we're going to do is make the reflection of the groundhog below it onto the grass. And the shape of our shadow mimics the shape of our object. So in this case, we have to make the rounded body for the groundhog with the curved lines and the impression of the circular head. So some circle lines that go to the edge of our paper. If you have some space, you can even make the start of the shape of the groundhog's ears. What I'm going to do is lightly take my colored crayon or pencil, remember it's black, and color in that shape I just drew. This will create a shadow effect. You do not have to press too hard when you are coloring. Remember, a shadow is a reflection, so it isn't as dark as it normally would be. Simply color it in so that you fill in the shape and make sure we stay inside the lines. And make sure your shadow goes towards the end of the page. If it looks a little too light, you could always go over it again with your crayon or pencil to make it a little darker and fill in any spaces that you may have missed. And there you have your shadow reflected on the ground for your groundhog. Now that it's seen its shadow, we can use all of our art materials, whether it's crayons or markers or colored pencils, and we can begin to add the little sun, because we need a sun in order for him to see the shadow. Having light is super important for there to be a reflection, so we should remember to add the sun before we forget. And you can pick a spot somewhere up top in the sky to create your sun. When your sun is finished, you can continue to add background details. Whatever materials you want to use is up to you. Remember, this is outside scene, so you should be thinking of outside details like trees and grass and rocks and leaves. And if you wanted, it could even be snow because it is winter in February 2nd, so you can make it also look like a snowy day. Above the ground line is the sky, below the ground line is the ground. And keep that in mind when you're deciding what details you want to add to your picture. And here's my completed groundhog drawing. I decided to add some trees in the background, and since it is a winter day in February, I left the branches bare because most of the leaves on the trees have already fallen down. Below I made some grass, and above I used blue to color in the sky. Whatever details you choose to add in the background, make sure you color them in neatly and completely. Good luck with your groundhog drawings, and I can't wait to see what they look like when they are done.